welcome to this new video. Today I would like to give you a tour of my balcony garden at the beginning of July. I usually record these tours more towards the end of each month, but I've been really enjoying my garden recently, so I really want to share with you some updates because weather-wise it's absolutely perfect, you guys. I mentioned this on several occasions, but our summers are really hot and humid. The temperatures can reach up to 40 degrees Celsius, even in the shadow. But this summer, it's really cool. Like, we have temperatures in high 20s, low 30s. So the plants are thriving. So I'm excited to show you how the things are looking at the beginning of July. But before we begin, a couple of really basic informations for those of you who are either new to the channel or who have never seen my balcony garden before. So I garden in zone 8. As I said, we have hot and humid summers and then cold winters with temperatures below freezing. And my garden faces northeast, so it only gets a couple of hours of sunlight in the morning, but then there are many plants that don't receive any direct sunlight at all because they are either on the floor and the sun doesn't reach them, or they are kind of shaded by other larger plants. And my garden is mostly perennial, so it may not give you that wow effect because it's not beaming with color and it's not beaming with annual flowers, but my thought process when creating this garden was so that it kind of mimics a real garden, that there are plants for different seasons of interest. So if you follow these tours monthly, you will see that indeed each month I'm trying to highlight different plants, and there's always something beautiful to look at, always something blooming, something seasonal. So as I said, it may not give you that wow effect, but the goal was that it provides interest all throughout the year. And when you incorporate all of those different plants for different seasons of interest in as small of a space as I have, it's not looking wow at like all throughout the year, but then all throughout the year there's always something pretty to look at and something that you can enjoy at any given moment. So let me show you what we can enjoy at the beginning of July. Alright, so why don't we start from the indoors, from the inside of my apartment. And this is how I usually go out on my balcony. So right from the start you can see this little grouping of plants here. We have fuchsias on both sides, here and here. Then we have some snapdragons that I grew from seeds. I highly recommend this variety. It's called Snapdragon Kimozi Apple Blossom, and it only grows about 20 centimeters tall, so it's absolutely perfect for smaller spaces, for smaller containers, even for windowsills, and they are great as cut flowers. And then, as I said, my balcony is in the shade for most of the day. I mean, as you can clearly see the difference between full sun and full shade here. It's getting a little bit dark on the camera. But I try to grow dahlias. This is a small experiment of mine. Last year I was actually pretty successful. I had one dahlia bloom beautifully for me, and I placed it strategically. As you can see, I lift the pots off the floor by placing them on another overturned pot so that these plants can catch as much morning sunlight as there is available. These two are not blooming yet, but this one is. Let me just give you a really quick look at this one. This is Dahlia famoso. But these more simple dahlias, they do better. These are pom-pom dahlias, I think, and they are not in bloom yet. We have some buds, but so far nothing. Alright, so as I turn this direction, let's just start with that back corner. So then we're gonna come back. I'm gonna talk about all of these plants we are just passing by, but let's start with this back corner here. This is my full shade garden, and as you can see, a whole bunch of lovely perennials in here. Japanese maple is bouncing back. This is Acer Orange Dream, and I complained a little bit about it because each year this poor plant, there's something wrong with it. Either it's getting too much sunlight, even with just a couple of hours of morning sunlight, this plant is unhappy, it's getting leaf scorched, and then we get a ton of wind on my balcony. And maples, they do not appreciate wind at all, and this one just throws a tantrum, if I can say so, about a plant, and it defoliates pretty much every year. So this is exactly what happened this year as well due to wind, but it is bouncing back. As you can see, it started to produce some new foliage, but this new foliage is already starting to get leaf scorched as well. But I'm gonna keep it for now, and I will see, because I absolutely love this tree, so I wouldn't want to separate myself from it. And I've grown it for like 4 or 5 years now, so I'm giving it yet another chance. But below we have a grouping of different perennials. Podophyllum spotty-dotty, such a beautiful plant with enormous leaves. I actually cut back some leaves because it was getting out of control, but it started to produce new leaves already. Lovely perennial for full shade, for partial shade. And then a couple of hostas, Halcyon Royal Wearly Pop, Brunnera macrophylla, and a beautiful silver fern with a very tricky name to pronounce, Athorium nipponicum pictum metallicum. I'm gonna put all the names on the screen, obviously. But as we turn this direction, a couple of blooming perennials. I spoke about all three of these in my recent video where I spoke about what plants you can plant in the shade that attract different types of pollinators. So here we have Astilbe, milk and honey, blooming beautifully right now. I planted it as a bare root earlier this spring and it grew pretty decent size already. Then we have heuchera. We have heuchera silver gumdrop. It's not silver because it's growing in the shade, so the less sun it gets, the darker usually the leaves. And over there we have Chiarella cordifolia, still blooming a little bit. This is more of an early summer bloomer, but it still has some lovely flowers attracting a whole bunch of smaller insects. And above, a beautiful variegated plant, Euonymus fortunei harlequin. As I turn around, look at my enormous hydrangea. This is hydrangea early blue. And I never have hydrangeas, especially big leaf hydrangeas, blooming at this time of year. Usually big leaf hydrangeas start blooming mid-May, and then by the end of June they are done blooming here for whatever reason. But with these cooler temperatures, these hydrangeas are still looking pretty fresh, and I even noticed some new fresh flower buds appear. Like, this is crazy. This has never happened before, and I've been cutting this for cut flower bouquets, and it just looks enormous and it has so many flowers on it. I start to think that I might need to give it away to someone because it's getting absolutely enormous. Look at this. I have it already kind of squeezed and pushed against the wall, but it reaches almost to the other end of the balcony. This is one of my oldest plants, but it's absolutely beautiful. I'm really enjoying it this year. On this side we have more snapdragons grown from seeds. Snapdragon Lucky Lips here as well. I've been cutting them for my mini bouquets, so there's not much flowers on the plants, but definitely enjoying this variety this year. Alright, so this is how this part looks from this side. Yet another plant here that I would like to highlight. This is Hydrangea arborescens from the Bella Ragazza series. I believe this is Limetta, even though I ordered Blanchetta, but you know, as per usual, I never get what I order. For some reason, they always mislabel the plants, or they turn out to be completely different variety. And same goes for these planters, my summer planters. I have Euphorbia Diamond Frost in here and a whole bunch of begonias, and I ordered Begonia Florence, and as per usual they turn out to be a completely different variety. But I think that this actually might be Florence because they are double bloom, beautiful pinks, but many of them are actually not pink, they are red or orange, and some of them are not even double at all. Alright, so as I turn around, this is what I see, and on the table I have more of those Kimosi apple blossoms in this planter that I created a couple of years ago with ivy, kind of creating sort of an arch, and these have been producing a ton of flowers as well. I need to cut them because we have a lot of spent blooms on them. But let's slowly turn this direction. On the floor we have a beautiful caladium. I think this one is Florida Moonlight, if I see well on the plant tag over there. Yes, Florida Moonlight, beautiful pink hearts. So this is how it looks. Let's move forward. On this side here, a little grouping of plants. Another caladium. I think this one is called Rosebud. I might not have a tag in here. Yeah, I think this is called Rosebud. Then another beautiful perennial for partial shade, Scabiosa. I think it might be a little bit pot bound, that's why it's not blooming much. But bees and butterflies absolutely love this one. Such a beautiful perennial plant. A little sedum over here. And as I look up, there's my new rose. This rose is said to tolerate a bit more shady areas, so I'm giving it a try. And it's not in bloom at the moment, but it had a couple of flowers, really beautiful flowers, a little bit earlier in summer, and it's actually starting to put on some decent growth. I planted it as a bare root this spring, so obviously it doesn't look like much. I will probably need to wait a year or two before it actually starts to climb up this arch. But let's come back to that dahlia that I just showed you before, looking absolutely beautiful. As you can see, they stay fairly small. I mean, I think this one is at its mature size because it is a smaller dahlia, but these are full-size dahlias, but as you can see, they stay fairly small when they are grown in partial shade. and the flowers are smaller as well, and some of them don't actually fully develop. So they are definitely not the best idea for partial shade or shady gardens, but I really wanted to give it a try. I couldn't help myself. So as I look up, here is my so-called veggie garden, right? Just here on the side, still another climber. It's not in bloom this month anymore. It was Clematis jackmanii with beautiful purple flowers. But on the floor behind the clematis, we have a couple of nasturtiums, cream troika and salmon gleam. Cream troika is a little bit more compacted variety, and salmon gleam is more of a climber. I grew these ones from seed as well. And just gonna give you a look on the right side here. We have ivy glacier topiary and passiflora eapopea. Absolutely loving this beautiful climber. Look at these flowers, don't they look so weird? Such a beautiful variety. And what's interesting with passifloras is each individual flower doesn't last very long. I think they last only 1 day or two, but then it keeps producing new flowers all the time. So it doesn't have a ton of flowers yet because it's still a very new plant. I actually thought that it may die because when it was delivered it looked absolutely miserable. There was not a single healthy leaf on it, so I'm really happy with how it bounced back. But we definitely need to give it a little bit more time for it to, you know, put on a really beautiful show. But really enjoying these flowers this year. So behind we have this little eryngium. This was a gift. I never bought an eryngium, but I got it as a gift and decided, okay, why not? Let's give it a try. And look, it actually blooms. I absolutely love eryngium flowers. They look so beautiful in bouquets. And I think I have 2 plants in here. I recently repotted them, so I'm definitely keeping it, and I'm curious to see how it does next year. So let me show you a couple of veggies that I grow in my shady garden. We have a whole bunch of radish in here. That's absolutely wilted. I forgot to water it. A couple of herbs, basil, chives, and rosemary. On the floor I have some more herbs. I have different flavored mint varieties. Then I have alpine strawberries, yellow alpine strawberry that tastes kind of like a pineapple, and then red alpine strawberries. And below we have a whole bunch of lettuce. And then I have 2 blueberry bushes, and they are just ripening and they are super sweet. So I have Brigitta Blue and then Pink Lemonade over there. So these are still pretty young, but they produce a handful of berries that unfortunately blackbirds are stealing from me. Hence why I hung these CDs, hoping to scare them off. So far so good, it seems to be working, but I had to cover my strawberries with a mesh net because they were just on that strawberry plant non-stop, stealing all of the berries. I could not even taste a single strawberry from this plant yet because the birds stole it all. More alpine strawberries, and surprisingly I decided to give a try to one tomato plant. So these raiding planters, they get probably about 4.5 hours of sunlight, and look at this tomato, full of flowers, full of green tomatoes that are ripening, right? So far so good, you guys. I mean, I'm positively surprised. I've tried tomatoes in the past that they never really did well for me, but I figured if I pick a miniature variety, you know, a really dwarf cherry tomato that produces yellow fruit, because, you know, the darker the fruit, the more sunlight it needs to ripen. So I figured if I'm gonna choose a yellow variety, maybe I have some chances. And I'm positively surprised. I already harvested a handful of tomatoes from it, so I might actually grow more tomatoes next year. And over there, just this absolutely massive hydrangea blueberry cheesecake that is now done blooming, and behind it ivy gold heart. Alright, you guys, we've made a turn of all the balcony. This is how it looks at the beginning of July. I have a couple of projects coming up, a couple of new plants that I'm really excited to add to my garden. I actually want to change a couple of plants that are not doing so well, like for example this woven willow tree that I didn't talk much about it. I have a love-hate relationship with that plant because I absolutely love the plant itself. I love the structure it provides, I love that woven trunk, but this plant is clearly not doing well in my garden because there has been a mistake. Like, I bought it on a plant fair a couple of years ago, and I asked for a dogwood for Cornus species, because cornus can be grown in partial shade, they don't require much maintenance, versus willow trees, they need plenty of sunlight, plenty of water, and this plant is clearly struggling in this fairly small container. So I'm thinking it would be a better idea for me to just give this plant away to someone who has a garden, someone who can enjoy it. You know, the plant will have all that space available to spread its roots in search for water and nutrients, so I'm sure it's gonna do much better being planted directly in the ground versus in this fairly small container, and this will give me opportunity to plant something else that will perhaps do better in a container garden. So I'm really excited to share that with you in the upcoming videos, but for today this is gonna be it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, obviously don't hesitate to ask them in the comment section. If there's any plant that you saw in my garden that I didn't mention in this video, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see each other in the next one.